Okay, hello everybody, and welcome to our live session for our leadership lab. Um, my name is Joel Talley. I am the chair of the Policy Standing Committee. I'm from St. Louis College of Pharmacy, and a little fun fact about myself is I actually just got done with international APhA rotation in Portugal. So I'm kind of living off a high of right now with that. So.
Hi, everyone. My name is Nicole. I'm a fourth-year student pharmacist at the University at Buffalo. I'm currently on my ambulatory care rotation in oncology. And a fun fact about me is that I used to be a ski instructor.
Hey, good evening, everybody. My name is Brian Gomez, a final year student pharmacist at the University of Georgia College of Pharmacy, and I'm currently on my off block. And so later this month, or in August, I should say, I'll be backpacking 100 miles in Scotland. So very excited.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Cap, and I am a third-year student pharmacist at Mercer University. And my fun fact is that I'm currently in New York City, and I just saw my first Broadway show last night.
Hey
Good
guys, I'm
evening,
Kelly. Oh, sorry. You can go. Okay, hi, I'm Kelly. I'm going to be a second year. I'm at Belmont University. And my fun fact is that I'm going to be seeing Benson Boone in concert in a month, and I'm really excited.
Hayden, if you want to introduce yourself as well.
Okay, no, sorry, I didn't want to overstep anyone. Good evening, everyone. My name is Hayden Wood. I'm a final year student and pharmacist at the University of Arkansas. I currently serve as your APhA-ASP Speaker of the House. And my fun fact is I am gearing up to go on an international rotation in Thailand here in just a little bit. So I'm very excited for that.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Crystal Atwell, and I have the pleasure of serving as the Senior Director for Student and New Practitioner Development at APhA. I'll stay on the travel trend. Next weekend, I'll be in Chicago for a quick trip, and then the weekend after that, I'm headed to Boston to watch the Red Sox play. So if there's any Sox fans out there, you're in good company.
We also want to give you guys an opportunity to introduce yourself. So if you want to drop your name in the chat and your school, we would love to hear from you. If you want to unmute as well and introduce yourself, we would also love that. Whatever you feel comfortable with. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to my committee with the rest.
So hello, policy VPs. This is so exciting that you're all stepping in your positions. As policy VPs, you will serve as your chapter's policy champion. Your job will be to educate, engage, and empower student pharmacists to become advocates for their profession. Some of your core responsibilities are looking at educating and communicating to members, leading advocacy-focused events, and you'll also play a key role in guiding student pharmacists in writing policy resolutions, creating ideas, promoting state-level involvement, helping chapters celebrate American Pharmacist Month or APHM. Something I did as policy VP was setting goals kind of before even beginning my position, which it looks like you're all kind of in that spot right now. Looking at, maybe a rough number of how many student pharmacists you want to engage throughout the year and how many events you want to hold. Things like that were kind of monumental in my year and making sure that we kind of reached the goals that we hoped to in the beginning. So welcome all to your positions.
One thing that we like to do at APhA-ASP Policy Standing Committee is celebrating the past through our policy flashbacks. So those are the last Wednesday of every month. And if you look on our APhA-ASP Instagram, there's actually one that was posted today that talks about the International Pharmacy Student Federation. So how you can get involved is by looking at our Instagram page and thinking about ways that you can implement the policy flashbacks, because there's always like a call to action on how you can get involved. So you, as policy vice president, can be part of implementing them in your chapter. So make sure you follow us on Instagram. And the one that we did last month was actually talking about getting involved in your state pharmacy association. So everyone has a state pharmacy association. Me being in Georgia, that would be GPHA, or the Georgia Pharmacy Association. And, change happens at the local and state level. So it's really important to be involved and be in the know with what laws are changing for pharmacists in your state, and to be on the cutting edge of that knowledge, because they determine how you're allowed to practice. So make sure that you connect with your state association. If you're not sure who they are, you can go into this webpage, then go from the members page to the state association for more information.
So one of the exciting things about APHA and about being a policy vice president is that you're not just directing policy at your chapter level, you are helping influence this association's policy perspectives, right? So this association, APHA, represents hundreds of thousands of pharmacists, student pharmacists, pharmacy technicians, and other folks within the pharmacy profession, and it presents a united front on the issues that we hold dearly. So on the screen, you'll see two examples recently, right? APHA, for example, about a month ago, actually withheld its very regular endorsement of ACIP's most recent adult immunization schedule because it didn't include COVID-19 vaccine recommendations for pregnant people. Just a couple days ago, in response to a request for information from Secretary RFK Jr., who was with the Department of Health and Human Services, actually sent over 16 pages worth of recommendations to one of their requests for deregulation. And these are just a couple of examples of some of the communication and advocacy that APHA does as an association. And maybe you're wondering, where does APHA, get the ammunition to write up these letters? Where do they get their opinions and stances from? And the answer is you all, is from its members. Through our policy processes internally, we help guide as members what our association represents and fights for on our behalf. And so on the next screen, this just really reiterates it. Both the policies of our entire association, APHA, and also our specific Student Pharmacist Academy, APhA-ASP, the policies that we set and that we agree upon guide not just the work that our government affairs team does in their day-to-day interactions with legislatures and regulatory bodies like CMS, Health and Human Services, the FDA, CDC, and more, but they also guide relationships that we have strategically with all the other pharmacy players that you can think of, right? That's folks like NABP, who help write and maintain the NAPLEX and MPJE. It's folks like AACP and ACPE, who help guide the education that student pharmacists and pharmacists get through continuing education. And so really how we as members and as an association approach pertinent issues gets its roots in our own policy language. Lastly, if you're a student pharmacist, you'll hopefully see some impact at the programming that we offer you all, both at MRM, our mid-year regional meeting, but also annual meeting. A lot of the events, webinars, and other sessions that we host during these conferences, and even some of the operations and positions that we have at your chapters, have their roots in policies that, as an academy, we have adopted. Last and most importantly, our policies begin with you all, right? Our policies start with members, they end with members. And so as a policy vice president, you have a really important role in shaping this. All right, so we've talked a lot about policies. What do these look like? We have a whole entire book compiled of policy statements that APHA-ASP has adopted over the years. These are just two I pulled from 2024, so pretty recent. But they take stances on things like loan repayment eligibility and how we use artificial intelligence in healthcare education. So you can see these policies, they're not necessarily like the most robust, pages-long solutions to problems, but they do voice our opinions and our values and our stances pretty broadly on issues. So as you all start thinking about and hearing about writing policies, this is what they sort of look like. All right, so all that being said, certainly you have lots of responsibilities as a policy vice president, and just one of them is to help your chapter and members at your school or college of pharmacy navigate the APHA-ASP policy process. And so for this semester, the entire policy process does span the full year, but for this semester, really your focus in this policy process should be to bring a resolution to MRM, our mid-year regional meeting that happens in October, November. So Hopefully, you all as a chapter can come up with some ideas of issues that you think warrant attention by our profession, by our association. And so go ahead, consider putting together a committee at your chapter, hosting an event, or just bringing this up during your general body meetings or at other opportunities with members and start brainstorming. What are issues that you all think should be addressed? Then, as a policy vice president, you'll be responsible for helping your chapter draft up to 2 resolutions. And with those resolutions, you'll have policy language that you'll draft similar to the ones we just looked at, along with some background statements. So just some brief information on why this is important, why you chose the language or the stance that you chose. And the general timeline is to have those done by early October, because we're trying to get all this done in advance of MRM to have some initial drafts of your resolution. Once your chapter has kind of put together ideas and some initial drafts, the next step happens at the regional level. So in early to mid-October, again, in advance of mid-year regional meeting, your regional delegate will host a regional webinar to discuss all chapters' resolutions that have been proposed and drafted within your region. So again, all chapters can draft up to 2 proposed policies, and the idea here is to still get feedback on your resolutions. These don't need to be perfect, they don't need to be fully, fleshed out. Just broad ideas, first drafts are great to bring to this regional webinar to discuss and get some initial feedback on. After that, your chapters will then use that feedback to kind of figure out, okay, which of our resolutions is strongest, what tweaks do we maybe want to make, and you'll submit as a chapter 1 final resolution to be considered at our mid-year regional meeting. And then once we get to MRM, every chapter during that meeting will have an opportunity to present their resolution. Other chapters and attendees will then be able to discuss and debate the resolutions. And then chapter delegates, there's one for every chapter, will then get to vote on the resolutions. That is kind of the midpoint of this entire policy process, and there's plenty more that happens afterwards, lots more exciting work that happens in the spring. But that kind of gets us through this semester. So kind of to summarize, major priority again is to, as a policy vice president, help your chapter bring a resolution to mid-year regional meeting, all the way from the brainstorming phase to having one really solid idea and drafted policy statement that you feel confident about submitting and presenting during major regional meeting to hopefully rally support for among other peers. All right, so I know I just threw a lot at you. Certainly, you do not have to be an expert in our APhA-ASP policy process now, and you don't even have to be an expert in a week. Both our team and our regional delegates, Speaker of the House, and staff will be in contact with you throughout the year to kind of give you reminders, give you tips, and keep you on track. But if you're curious to go ahead and get a start, I would encourage you to go to pharmacist.com and check out our chapter officer resource hub under the student pharmacist community. And you can learn more about that on the intro video that you all hopefully had an opportunity to watch ahead of tonight's live session. On that page for policy vice presidents, we have a document called the capsule, which explains the entire policy process, some of the terms, what roles different people play in that process. And then we also have a copy of our entire book of adopted resolutions. It is over 100 pages of all the actions that we as an Academy of Student Pharmacists has taken over the years. And so that's a great place to start for inspiration, to get an idea of how these resolutions are written, structured, what kind of topics they address. And they also do list them by status. So you can see resolutions that we've archived. Maybe we don't agree with the sentiment anymore, but at one point we did pass them through our policy process. And then lastly, if you follow us on Instagram, not just for our policy flashbacks, we'll also be releasing soon a video series called The Capsule Unleashed, where we'll be walking you and other APhA-ASP members through the policy process. So again, don't need to be an expert tonight, don't need to be an expert in a week. We will be here to guide you through the process, and there's a number of resources on our website to learn more.
Okay, it's the discussion time now. So we really encourage everybody, if you feel motivated to just kind of join in on this discussion. So we talked about a lot, but like Brian said, the policy process starts with you and your chapter. So policy is really your vision for the future. So we want to hear from you some ideas or some things. There's going to be 4 questions I'm going to put up on the screen. We're going to go through them one by one. If you want to drop your solution to it or an answer to it in the chat, we can talk about it as a group and we can just kind of discuss it and we can see where those ideas go from there. So our first question I have for you is, what is missing from your pharmacy school curriculum? If you feel like unmuting, feel free. If you want to drop it in the chat, you're answering the chat, feel free.
Looks like a lot of students are saying AI.
AI, okay. What about AI?
I would just put forward the ethical use of AI, right? In a lot of cases, we're seeing researchers who are using this material and accidentally causing hallucinations from AI that's generating false resources and information that supports their perspectives. How do we as pharmacists go through this information and make sure that we're actually understanding how these systems are being used, how we can implement these tools for patient care, and how we can determine whether or not we're being, accidentally deceived with some of these things. And by understanding the pitfalls and the strengths, we're going to be better as a field in implementing this new wave of technology.
Definitely. Yeah, that's really good. Yeah. Anybody else have anything?
The social determinants of health. I see finances in pharmacy. Medical terminology is a second language, in a second language.
Good. Yeah, all good ideas. Okay, we'll move on to the next question. So now what skills like leadership, financial literacy, etc., do you want to see more formally taught in pharmacy school?
I also say, as you all think and brainstorm, Joel, I also like flipping these questions on their head, right? I think oftentimes we think about what can we add to the curriculum? Where should we add? At least in the academia space, there's a lot of talk about curricular bloat, right? So what should we maybe remove? What was pertinent 20 years ago, but is now just taking up space in our curriculum and adding more to student pharmacists' plates, but maybe not helping them? So if any of you have thoughts on that, I'm always interested to hear what people think should be taken out of the curriculum or maybe shifted to undergrad, what have you.
Yes, yes. Thank you, Brian. Yes, if you want to complain here, this is a place to complain. Like, I am a big complainer, and that's where ideas come from. So if you want to complain, guys, feel free. Is there anything in the chat I'm missing?
Yes, we're seeing transitioning from retail pharmacy to clinical advocacy, utilizing resources outside of pharmacy, networking. Um, Chase said taking up space, torsion balances. I think we're all love the torsion balance lectures. Entrepreneurship, financial literacy, emotional intelligence, navigating billing requirements for retail or long-term care settings as well.
Yeah, those are always all good. I definitely would like some of those.
This is an interesting perspective. Joel put, I think that group work should be limited once in pharmacy school. You never stop working in groups, but it's a skill that's generally developed in undergrad. Sometimes group work can encourage lack of confidence in students and it adds more stress to the curriculum.
Yeah, that's really good.
Sounds like active learning done wrong.
Yeah.
which I think we all have run into that problem.
Yeah. Yes. Okay, so our third question, what do you want to see changed in your role as a pharmacist? This can be any like clinical role, community pharmacy, industry pharmacy, government pharmacy, any place you see yourself as a pharmacist. What do you want to see changed in that role?
Seeing a lot of provider status, and I think that's a wonderful answer heading there.
I
Also
agree.
seeing like a decreased focus on metrics for community, professional autonomy, putting the patients first, especially when it comes to doctors and prescribing.
All good answers. I agree with all of them. I want to see all that change. Okay, we'll move on to the fourth question. And this is our final question. What are some gaps that limit your ability to provide patient care? So obviously, I feel like PBM is a big one for everybody. What else are we thinking?
The American Medical Association.
Yeah, whoever said AMA, that made me laugh. So thanks for that.
Staffing, medical misinformation. I think Carly said, I think a lot of other healthcare professionals don't understand what we had. Hitting the nail on the head. I'm seeing some about like integration, collaboration with other providers. Lack of reimbursement for services.
All really good ones, yes. Okay. So the things about these questions is they're kind of a revolve around an umbrella of kind of where some of our past policies have come from. So this question was about what is missing from your current pharmacy school curriculum. We pulled a policy that in our books that was related to this. So this is integration of social determinants of health into pharmacy education. So some people might have said in the chat, I heard that social determinants of health was something that they wanted to learn more about. We do have these in the books. So these are some things that you as an APHA member can go to your school and be like, this is something that APHA believes in and wants to see done and changed. Can we add this to our pharmacy school curriculum? Can we, do that? And this is something that like we have your back as a association and an academy of student pharmacists. We have your back on that. The second question was preparing you as postgraduates. So what Brian put up earlier, financial planning education. Students in the past have wanted to see this change, and so this is something that we have your back on as well. If you want to add this to the education, or if you want to advocate at your chapter level, at your school of pharmacy, for this, it's a big thing that we as student pharmacists have wanted to see in the past, and we still want. Obviously, pharmacists as providers, this is something that we all want and we all are trying and working so hard to get. We've made very big strides in this as well. Something that you all can do as student pharmacists is attain an NPI number. We had our first policy flashback actually was on this. So if you don't know how to or are interested in doing that, you can go to the APhA-ASP Instagram and look at those directions on how to get that NPI number for yourself. This can help you go into whenever you get into the real world as a big old pharmacist. You already have that and sets you apart from everybody else. And then lastly, question 4 was improving your ability to provide patient care. So one example of this was increased access to opioid reversal agents. So this was something that students, pharmacists wanted to see change, was more or availability for these opioid reversal agents. And we have seen that come to play in the past couple of years where more Narcan has been more widely available for people. It's now over the counter. So this is kind of a great thing and kind of seeing that policy that has turned into action.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Joel. I just want to reiterate again that if you're curious what we have already, quote unquote, in the books, have already adopted policy language on, you should go to pharmacist.com, visit our student pharmacist community, and look for that APhA-ASP book of adopted resolutions. And especially as your chapter is thinking of resolutions, oftentimes it's one of our goals to come up with MRM proposals that aren't duplicative of what we already have on the books. So certainly scan through that. Make sure that as you all brainstorm and start drafting proposals, that you're challenging yourself to come up with a policy topic that's contemporary, that hasn't been talked about before, that's novel, that we don't already have good, robust language for. Some of the common topics that we get submitted every year, or policy resolutions that we get submitted every year at MRM, are related to things like provider status and PBM reform, some of the things that we mentioned tonight, and that's listed on the screen. Certainly, these are important issues, right? They're important. They affect student pharmacists, they affect pharmacists, and they affect our patients. That's why they're being talked about so much. That's why they're in the news. Some of these issues are causing pharmacies to close at the rate of more than one a day. And so certainly these are big hot button issues. But again, we already have language that our academy has already adopted on them. And so I want to challenge you all as policy vice presidents to encourage your members to think of what's next in pharmacy. What's the new big issue in maybe 5-10 years that we're not seeing now, but that if we're not prescient about, that if we're not careful enough to have the foresight to act now on it, we might get caught down the road. So think of what's new, what's coming up. I think AI in the past couple of years has been a great example of that and getting policy language about artificial intelligence. Keep challenging yourself to think about topics like that. Certainly, if there's already a policy related to an issue or topic area that you're passionate about within our book of adopted resolutions, it doesn't mean you can't draft something related to that and propose that MRM, but do think intentionally about how your new language might be an improvement over what has been previously written and adopted. So just some considerations for you to think through. And then I also want to just add on to what Joel had said and encourage you all to actually look through this book and use it as a tool for you all in your advocacy at your school or college of pharmacy. I think often as policy vice presidents, we think about the state issues and the federal issues, and we think about visiting Capitol Hill and talking to lawmakers. And certainly I want all of your chapters to feel motivated to do those kinds of activities, but advocacy also happens within the four walls of our educational institutions, right? So if there is an area in your curriculum that you feel isn't covered robustly, if there's a change in your curriculum that you want, or even in how you maybe manage student organizations at your school or college of pharmacy, take a look through this book and use it as ammunition for your own advocacy, right? Like feel empowered to go to your administrators and say, hey, APhA-ASP believes, for example, that education on reproductive health and abortifacient agents should be in our curriculum. What that means is more than half of all schools and colleges of pharmacy, or student pharmacist representatives from all schools and colleges of pharmacy across the nation, believe that and support that. So this is a really valuable tool in establishing consensus across the country from our student pharmacist members. Use that as a tool as you all talk with your administrators and your faculty about the changes you want to see happen at your local program.
Great, thanks so much, Brian. So just some next steps looking forward. After this meeting, I encourage you all to reflect on what we discussed today and to begin setting your own goals and drafting your policies for MRM. Looking forward to September. Mark your calendars for Monday, September the 22nd. We will be holding regional meetups for you and your chapter members to connect with student pharmacists at nearby schools and colleges of pharmacy. You should have received an email from Joel to sign up for that based on your region. And finally, you are able to reach out to PSC or your regional delegates if you need help or support at all. Our emails will be on this PowerPoint upcoming very soon. And if any regional delegates are on the call, I'll encourage you to introduce yourself as well. But yes, these are your regional delegates, their corresponding regions and their emails if you do need them at any point in support of the process of creating your resolution.
All right. So with that, I do welcome any questions that you guys might have while we're all on the call together. Any questions for about the pre-recorded video, any questions that we talked about that might come up while our discussion here, anything at all, go ahead and unmute yourself or fill in the chat. Not seeing anything. So with that, if you do have any questions after this, feel free to email us. If you want to DM us on Instagram, feel free. Or in GroupMe, you can always ask the questions. With that, I encourage you all to join our Policy Vice President GroupMe. This has all the regional delegates in it, as well as all of the PSC members and our Speaker of the House, Hayden, and all as well as a bunch of other policy vice presidents in the nation on that as well. So we've used it a lot in the past last year, just with questions that have come up with anything regarding the policy process, anything with advocacy related events. So yeah. And if there are no questions, you all have an extra 30 minutes back of your night. So thank you all so much for joining us. We look forward to a great year.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.